Two assassins sitting on the roof, one named Pete, the other named Repeat. Pete got mysteriously shoved off. Who was left? Hi everyone, I'm Tommy the Keyblade Master, and with an intro like this, there can be only one repetitive game about assassins. And that would be, of course, Assassin's Creed. Let's go over to the bargain bin, pull it out, see how much it is, and if this somewhat repetitive game is worth its asking price. Yay! Did you just try to stab me, you stupid, pathetic excuse for a game?
Of course I did. After all, you calling me one of the worst games ever made. You deserve it. I'm a classic.
Now, when I said you were one of the worst and most boring sandbox games I've ever played, I did not mean you weren't well made. It was obvious a lot of time and care went into making Assassin's Creed by Ubisoft, the developers. Unfortunately, its gameplay can't hold up the entire time. Assassin's Creed's worst crime is that it's ready to be over with long before the final boss fight. Had the prices risen on this game, I could have sworn I got it around $7 a couple of years ago. Anyways, right now on GameStop it's $13, and eBay price was between $10 to $15.
Yeah, baby, my price is skyrocketing. I must be worth something.
Fun isn't always indicated by price. I had more fun playing Prince of Persia, which is a quarter of the price that GameStop is asking for Assassin's Creed here. Alright, the story has two real-life historic forces, and first is the Knights Templar. If you've never actually heard of them, they helped create banking and were a part of the Catholic Church during the Crusades. They really weren't terrible people, but history has given them a bad rap. They're always involved in conspiracies, and that really has to do with the way the group ended. The King of France really wanted that group ended because he was in debt up to his ears to them. And then, of course, we have our heroes, the assassins over here. This is really a purely fictional in the game group. However, they're based off the Hashashin, I probably butchered that name, which was a group that believed rather than having a strong military that would go kill civilians and get other groups mad at you, it would be better to have well-placed assassins in the lands of your neighbors. So if you find out that someone was going to try to screw with you, you just kill a few of their military leaders in broad daylight, scare the piss out of them, and hopefully they'll leave you alone, was the group's ideology. Not much is known about them since their records were destroyed when they were finally taken over, but it is believed they have used drugs or sex to get the assassins to do what their leaders wanted. But like I said, this is purely fictional inside the game. As for how the game portrays actual history, it gets an F. We only meet one or two historical characters. They're oftentimes depicted being the wrong age. Their death is oftentimes being depicted in the wrong year. And how do the game cover up these fallacies? Well...
Yes? Some of the stuff I'm seeing in the Animus, sometimes it seems wrong. Untrue, like the history is off somehow. It doesn't
what, Mr. Miles? Match up with what you read on an online encyclopedia? What your high school history teacher taught you? Let me ask you something. Do these supposed experts have access to secret knowledge kept hidden from the rest of us?
Nah, they weren't guilty of lazy writing. And the game does suffer a little bit from lazy writing. Let me get on to the main plot here, because there's a few good things in the B plot, but the A plot's video game cliché straight through. The game opens up with a wanderer named Desmond Miles getting kidnapped by a pharmaceutical company called Abstergo. Now, they're after some sort of ancient treasure that his ancestor once hid, and they're strapping him to a virtual reality machine that allows one to relive the memories of your ancestor. You'll be jumping in and out of the program back to Desmond from time to time, but his is really the B story, and it just focuses on these three characters. You got Desmond, you got Lucy, and you got Vidic, who's kind of the villain. And Vidic is a really good villain. He's kind of smarmy. He knows it all. He's really arrogant. He's, someone you just want to love to hate. And like I said, these three characters have really interesting attributes. But again, this is the B story. Anyways, you eventually get into the machine and you're transported back in time to play as a assassin named Altair. Altair is an arrogant jerk. He ignores the three tenets of his assassin's code. Basically, to paraphrase them, number one, you don't kill civilians. Number two, you don't bring attention to yourself. And number three, you don't bring trouble back home with you. He manages to do all three. Needless to say, his boss is quite pissed at him and, well, decides to kill him.
I am alive.
And by kill, I mean merely drugging him and stealing his armor. It seems like in order to get his equipment back and his rank, Altair will once again have to prove himself to the master here by fulfilling missions on his own that only the master gives out to him. Let me tell you the story beats. Basically, in each arc, you go to a city, you visit the assassination bureau, where they will give you your target. You then have to collect information by pickpocketing, eavesdropping, or interrogating. Once you got enough information, you go back to the bureau. They will give you a feather, and then you proceed with the hit by going to where your target is, followed by a quick cutscene to show that Altair's target is an evil man. And then you do your assassination attempt. Once the boss is dead, they will do a confession scene before they die, and then Altair will go back to Al-Mualim, his master, and report what he's found. Repeat 9 times. So let's see here. We have Altair, who's basically an outcast to the rest of the assassins, being the only one giving these missions by Al-Mualim, who seems to know where these Templars are and wants the treasure that they're after. Oh geez, I hope they're not going with video game cliché number 50, basically stating that whoever you think your boss is in charge of you at the beginning of the game is actually the evil mastermind and the final boss. Damn it! And for those who are going to yell I should put up spoiler warnings, it's not a freaking game spoiler when you can tell it's coming from, oh, I don't know, the beginning of the game. Now the cliché, formulaic story wouldn't be so bad if I gave a damn about Altair here, but I don't. He has no history and past. The only thing as far as a personality that they give him is that he's missing a finger, but that is never explained. Supposedly in the story, he's supposed to go from big douche unliked by the other assassins to sort of likable douche that is respected by the other assassins. Although you see the other assassins comment it, you never really see him go through any process of change, other than the short conversations with Al-Mualim. There is no real big character change in this guy. He's a nameless assassin, and he doesn't rub off on you at all. He's easily forgettable. And how personality-less is Altair? Well, they don't even bother giving him a face. Most of the time it's covered, but if you can swing the camera angle around to see it, it's the same face as Desmond. They don't even bother giving him his own face. That's how personality-less this guy is. He's, like I said, he's easily forgettable, and you don't really want to remember him. He's just unlikable, too. To make matters worse, a game came out a year earlier that had the same cliches and were done better. It was called Tales of the Abyss from Namco, a Japanese RPG. Both had a character that started as a douchebag and ended as a hero, and a teacher that becomes the villain. However, you actually saw why he became less of a douche throughout the story, and the teacher's motivations for the betrayal were at least complex. Both of these guys seen here. Oh, and like Prince of Persia, this game also ends on a to-be-continued cliffhanger as well. I spent a lot of time BSing about the story. It's time to move on to the graphics. How do they look after all these years? Well, surprisingly, they still hold up somewhat. The attention to details to buildings when you're up close is still pretty impressive, although in the distance the buildings do look like they come out of a PS2 game, but for its time in 2007, which is the beginning of the 360 generation, they look pretty good. Can't say the same thing about the character faces, though. The characters' faces and animations look somewhat bizarre, especially when you're dealing with the three people from the B story line that I'm talking about, and these are the people, the game does want you to focus on when you're in that storyline. So there's a lot of conversation and dialogue, and they just kind of look odd. The only way I could explain it. Also, during these real-world events with Desmond, the game goes kind of grainy to it, but that's on purpose. It's kind of a virtual reality story trope where if I'm in the real world, it's going to look like I'm playing on a TV, while in virtual reality it will look more real than the real world. So that was the idea here. It comes off okay. I've seen better, but it comes off as okay. Two assassins sitting on a roof. One named Pete, the other named Repeat. An arrow suddenly hit Pete and threw him off the roof. Who was left? The fact that I did a Pete repeat joke here probably means I'm going to criticize the sound as being repetitive. You got it. You're going to hear this. Yeah, every time you find a crier, that is what they will say. If you're in Jerusalem and Damascus, Acre has its own recording, but don't worry, you'll be hearing that one a billion times too. There's nothing new that the town criers say throughout the game, and you meet dozens of them. I get it, the whole idea is that there's a fake one for you to interrogate when you hear something different. But it just gets monotonous, nor does it really help keep up with the game story when every crier says that. And if that's not repetitive enough, listen to this.
Thank you, my boy. I only wish my sons were half as brave as you. I'll see to it that they hear this tale and know what it is to be a true hero.
Or this.
You came along when you did. Another minute and they would have made off with me.
You have to save dozens of these people in the game, but there's only 2 or 3 voice samples per rescue, so you get a lot of repeats. And that's not talking about this little number here that's always good at making me boil over.
I need money, sir. Poor and sick and hungry.
When these beggars come up to you, they won't shut up, and they always say the same clip over and over again. Also, there's no real good way of getting rid of them other than this. Well, actually there is. You can run them through. That actually causes less of a problem with the guards than punching them. I don't know why. And I could crack jokes about this, but I won't. I don't think anybody except those who are on extremes on their ideology would ever say that's a good way to treat someone in need. Of course, I could go on about how many mental retards you kill, but I'll save that for the obviously dumb AI. Alright, I'll get to the good parts first. I've already kind of dwelt enough on the bad. There is some fun in Assassin's Creed. When you're doing things like climbing large buildings or just exploring the towns, which are beautifully designed and built, there is some fun in it. The problem is despite the size of these towns, there's nothing much to do other than the 3 or 4 things that you have to accomplish your missions. Let me explain. One of the first things you'll always need to do is go climb atop a tall tower and synchronize your map. This will allow you to see objectives nearby and the missions you need to accomplish. These are kind of fun to do. It's always fun to find a way up to the top of the tower, and the assassin's ridiculous leap of faith, which would probably break every bone in your body if you tried it in real life, is fun. But that's kind of the problem. Next to the excellent controls and the climbing ability, there's not much to this game other than repetitive stuff. Another side objective you can complete, and all these are optional, it's one of those highly recommend you do, is save the people you hear screaming for help on the street from guards. These are pretty simple. You'll see them hassling people, you go up to and you start picking a fight with the guard. Once they're all finished up, the people will thank you, and then 2 things will happen. If it's a woman, vigilantes will appear on that spot, and they will block guards that are chasing you, helping you make fast getaways. This is important because you'll always have to run from a bunch of guards after you kill a boss. Saving men you see under attack by the guards, though, will bring out a bunch of scholars that will help you travel around the city without being seen, provided you don't mind walking very slowly. Usually they're found around where the boss is going to be, so you can slip past the guard post. You'll be seeing these guys a lot less than the women and the vigilantes, but useful when you can find them. As far as the 3 investigations go, well, they're more like 3 little mini games you have to play, and there's the same throughout the game. The first, there's investigations, where you'll find someone on the street blabbing nonsense that isn't the usual game repetitivity. You then have to follow these people without them noticing you until they get into a dark alley. Or if you don't mind other guards or passerbys joining in the fight, you can beat them out in broad daylight in the middle of the streets. Doesn't matter, they go down pretty easy either way. Just make sure you're always locked on to the guy you're interrogating. After they're beaten to a pulp, they'll stop and talk to you. After you're done talking to the guy, Altair will always give him a killer stomachache. Then there's eavesdropping, which is the easiest of the bunch. You just find a seat, sit down, walk on to 2 soldiers nearby, and press Y to hear their conversation. No fighting, no way of getting caught or even getting hurt. This one's pretty easy and pretty boring. And finally there's pickpocketing, which has you trying to find a target with information and steal it from the back of their pockets without them knowing. If you get caught, you'll have to fight the guards. These are a little bit trickier than the first 2. I should mention there's also some assassin missions you can do, which includes trying to assassinate several people without ever getting the guards' attention, or collecting a bunch of flags in a short period of time. These are more frustrating than the other 3, and you usually don't need to do them. Now let's talk about this game's absolutely retarded AI. Now, the easiest way to kill soldiers is to catch them by surprise and assassinating them with the hidden blade. However, unlike most stealth action games where if you get caught, your best bet is to run away, in Assassin's Creed, fighting is easier than running away by a ridiculous measure. Once you've learned counter, you're pretty much invincible. You just take a defensive stance until you hear someone hit your sword and then press X to finish them off. There is no defense for the computer to use against it. Almost everybody's vulnerable to that technique. And again, we get repetitive animations for that. You want to know how bad this is? Look at this! You see the street full of dead corpses? Well, those were people who chased me for about 5 minutes because I was trying to just get away. Eventually I got tired of running and fought them. I ended up killing that many, and then a few more soldiers tried to come up upon me while I was trying to record this and tried to pick a fight. They soon wished they hadn't. So we have a bunch of hard to escape from guards that are easy to kill. This is the exact opposite of what most stealth action games are. Normally in a stealth action game, when you get caught by the guards, you want to run because fighting usually ends up getting you killed. Not in Assassin's Creed, however, where killing pretty much anyone is a cinch and the guards are brain dead. Even Sly Cooper, which is a kid's game, gets this right. You don't usually want to fight the guards once they catch you. Assassin's Creed blew it. Now you see why Assassin's Creed to me is one of the worst games of this generation. It's not that it was poorly developed. No, a lot of time and effort went in by talented people to make it. But it just gets repetitive and worse, boring before even halfway through the game. And that is a worse crime, I think, in some ways than it just being poorly developed and terrible. At least a terrible game has some fun in it by mocking how bad it is. Here, it's just how quickly can it put you to sleep. And that's the problem. Prince of Persia at least tried to be entertaining throughout. It may have stumbled on the battle system and the light seed collecting, but it tried to be exciting. Assassin's Creed seems that it's given up on all its ideas before even halfway through. And that's quite a shame. I would say games like Naruto, Rise of a Ninja, also developed by Ubisoft, and one of my favorite games this generation, is a better game than Assassin's Creed, despite the fact that its overworld map is less than the city of Acre. Despite the small area you can explore, there's tons to do. Assassin's Creed is just dull from the get-go, and it's a real shame. It could have been a gem. It's just this and this over and over and over again. As for achievements, the game is pretty easy for the most part. You'll get a lion's share just going through the story, finishing some of those side quests like synchronizing all the eagle platforms or saving all the people in each village will also unlock new ones. To get them all, though, you will have to find all these flags in the area. It's a needle in the haystack type hunt. I obviously didn't go after those because, well, I usually skip tedious stuff like that when I can. So Assassin's Creed, that's my problem with you. You're just not a great game. You're well made, but you're not fun, and that's what counts when it comes to video games.
That's it, I've had enough. I'm going to kill you.
Not while I have my Wii remote.
Who are you trying to kid? Those aren't dangerous.
This is one of the ones with the original strap and without a safety jacket.
You're insane to destroy TVs, the holes in the wall, the actual facial damage from those things. Those are dangerous.
Well, that takes care of that guy. Now, Assassin's Creed is like $13, I said. At GameStop, I wouldn't pay any more than $5, so it's a little overpriced right now. And I can only recommend it to diehard fans of the series or people who are fans of the open world sandbox genre. I give Assassin's Creed a 2 out of 5. While it's not a terrible game or poorly developed, it suffers from the crime of just being boring. What would I do to have improved this game? Well, first I would have put in a cash system. I earn money by going out and completing missions. I can then use that money to buy upgrades, even to buy investments in a town and rebuild it so that town will earn me even more money in the future. I can also use that money when people come up panhandling me to throw it on the ground to distract them rather than having to punch them. I would also give the main character a personality. He doesn't have to be a saint, he is an assassin, but someone who doesn't seem to enjoy his job too much. He has a little humanity, and say he got drafted into it because his family got killed would make an excellent storyline. I would put it also, say, in a flashier time like the Renaissance, and have them interact with popular characters from that time, both good and bad. You do that and you might have an interesting game. I would say even one of the best games of this generation. Oh, hello, one of the best games of this generation. Sorry I was a bit long-winded, but there's a lot about this game that I really dislike. That said, its sequel's pretty good. Anyways, if you like this review, subscribe to my channel. I will be doing Assassin's Creed 2 sometime in the near future. Again, that one's a really great game and worth the asking price that GameStop wants for it.